Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 95, Justino versus Landsberg. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismoldon.com. I am an author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can purchase some of my works, starting with my first novel, an action-adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 on my website on PDF format. Or if you have an e-reader such as a Kindle, you can buy it from Amazon.com for $4.99. Also, for just $1.99, you can buy some of my short stories or short story collections on my website or on Amazon.com, starting with the fantasy horror short story, The Land of the Wooden Statues. Then there's the horror collection, which is a compilation of 3 of my gothic horror short stories, and the Fantasy Fable collection, which is a compilation of 4 of my Fantasy Fable short stories. Links to buy these will be provided on the description, along with a link to my Twitter page, a link to my author's Facebook page, our author's page on Facebook, and a link to my author's YouTube page, which has like manga reviews and free readings of my short stories. So, on to this card. I thought it was a pretty overall fun card. Some of the fights that I didn't expect to be too fun to actually be grinders were actually a lot better than I thought they'd be. A lot of interesting groundwork, a lot of I don't think I've seen a card with this much scrambling on the ground. So there's a lot of good groundwork going on here. Some pretty huge upsets with like Spicy over Santos, and Prazeres versus Burns was an upset as well. My picks. This was definitely one of my weaker cards. I got 7 out of 13 correct. The only saving grace I can say out of that is I'm still above 50% of the picks. Still have a streak of that going on, but otherwise, yeah, didn't do so well. Definitely got to reanalyze some of the guys and some of their skill sets. Bonuses, Spicy and Luque picked up performance of the night, while Silva versus Chagas took home fight of the night. Yeah, I'm gonna say this though, despite not picking well, I don't think too many were egregious picks. Franco over Gillespie, Gillespie won, but I thought Franco did pretty well for himself. Gillespie was just able to really implement his game better. Patrick versus Ray was probably the one more egregious picks here. I thought Ray would be able to defend the takedowns more. I don't really honestly, the way that Eric Silva was getting dropped, picking Chagas, I don't think was the worst thing there. Prazeres versus Burns, it's like one of those in hindsight. Prazeres was I guess the better pick. That one, you know what? That one I just couldn't see. Um, I couldn't see that one happening, especially Spicy versus Santos. Could not see that one coming. Pepe versus De La Torre, even in some of the comments I was saying, that one can go either way. This is actually, we've got to rid of Pepe versus any, mid-level guy. Not, an unranked guy. I mean, this is what Pepe can do. But also, Pepe was also getting hit himself. So, I don't think De La Torre is the worst pick there. Just because it's just, man, Pepe leaves himself quite open. Um, so I don't really find them to be egregious picks. It's oh my god, totally should have picked the other guy. Some of them, in hindsight, obviously, I'll pick, you know, like certain things are a little more obvious now. But as it happened, and even as how the fights happened, some of these fights happened. I mean, some of these guys that won definitely were in trouble. So I'm kind of hedging there, but let's actually just get started. Cris Cyborg Justino defeated Lena Landsberg by TKO in the second round. This is utter domination from Cyborg, and it's one thing that I was mentioning too is besides Cyborg being able to beat people up on the feet, she's able to ragdoll opponents onto the ground. She has a really good clinch takedown game and really strong ground and pound. She's always had that in her back pocket. Um, you know what though? What's funny about this fight is that there's more. It says it asks more questions about Cyborg and like a potential featherweight division in general than the fight itself would say. You know, after this, I expect Landsberg to go down to 135 pounds. She might be able to find success there. So, there's actually a couple talking points when it comes to this fight, or more just with Cris Cyborg in the UFC. One, what's the point of her fighting at 140 pounds? I I think I see the idea of what the UFC wants to do. They want to get like a Holly Holm, maybe even Misha Tate, uh, some of the higher level bantamweights to move up. Oh, it's only 5 pounds against Cris Cyborg. Um, that hasn't happened yet. So far, they got Leslie Smith, who's like a really like bottom rung bantamweight, who's actually fought at flyweight, and then Lena Landsberg, who's new to the UFC. So it's like they so far they haven't got any of the top women's bantamweights to fight Cris Cyborg, even with even at 140 pounds instead of 145. Um, it does make it seem a bit pointless for Cyborg to fight at 140. It's like she's making these drastic weight cuts. They're on video. We know that they are pretty tough weight cuts, and there's really no point of it. She can fight at 150, and it kind of equates to the same thing. But well, I'm exaggerating there, but like she can fight at 145. There we go, and it will equate to the same thing. Um, so that also just brings a question of what happens with Cyborg next, like in the UFC. Like, does she ever defend her Invicta FC title? There was someone waiting in the wings who is a legit 145 pounder in Megan Anderson um, in Invicta, but and maybe they can bring that fight to the UFC, I suppose. So this also calls into question about having a women's featherweight division in the UFC. I actually have like articles about it. I read a fan post on Bloody Elbow about why I don't like the idea of having the division in the UFC. Lack of talent, lack of prospects, overall age of fighters is actually like if you look at like some websites do have a list of like a top 10 list for like each women's weight division. Like MMA Rising probably has the best list. And like you're talking like Peggy Morgan is on that list, and there's some really like, and no offense to Peggy Morgan, but she's not very highly skilled, and she's like a top 10 women's featherweight. Um, that to me suggests that having the actual division there is not a good idea because of a lack of overall quality of skill. I mean, to me, that would showcase bad skill in the premier organization, uh, in the premier MMA organization out there. Now, I've been hearing a lot of alternatives to this that maybe do give Cris Cyborg the women's featherweight title, and instead of actually having a division, maybe you just have a who can beat Cyborg sweepstakes in a sense. Give her a belt at 145 and just okay, Cyborg fights Megan Anderson next. Okay, one fight contract or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if they can do that. And if she beats Cyborg, she stays. If not, she goes. And then maybe if some women's bantamweights want to be a champion, try their hand at featherweight. Maybe they can do that and be a champion in the UFC. Like, there are a couple alternatives here. They also pointed out that, you know, the UFC had Vale Latornu fight Joanne Calderwood at 125 pounds. They didn't have a division for that. Why not have fights at 145? You can also go with have Cyborg fight at 145 in the UFC and no belt. Just have no belt there. You know. Um, if you watch a lot of like women's MMA, I'll tell you right now, like 145, just it's not high level MMA except for like the few top fighters. Some of the top fighters too are actually getting a lot older. Like Marloes Kunin, she's getting older. So, some of them are signed to Bellator. Kunin and Bud are both signed to Bellator, so that makes it also really hard to get them into the UFC. Um, so I'd like to see like maybe like a Jermaine Delandami fight Cyborg next. I think that'd be one of the better fights they can do. Um, like I said, I am just not in favor of having women's featherweight in the UFC. I have a particular. I know that we'll see like some like Ultimate Fighter cast-offs or like some really low-level fighters in the UFC fight in the UFC that probably don't belong there, but they are not representative of the whole division. You know, like if you're putting like Charmaine Tweet, Latoya Walker, Megan Anderson, Amanda Bell, all in the UFC, and all of them in the UFC, that's represent, and they fight at a relatively low level. I'm not trying to be mean too. I'm just trying to be fact. Like I don't want to say factual because like assessment is not factual per se, but and the way I see it, it's really low level skill being displayed in the UFC that's representative of a whole weight division. Um, there's some exceptions. Megan Anderson's great. Um, Keely Buzzard, she's good if they can ever get her. Kunin, she's solid. Alexis DeFries, you know what, her gassing kind of sucks. So it's tough to say if she's she has an upset win over Kunin. Um, but like, yeah, even on the top of the division, like even Cindy Dandois and like Edian Gomez, who fight at 145, who would be top 145ers. Actually, they tend to fight at 135. So it's like, I don't even have a lot of legit 145 pounders to begin with. Um, so it's a really tough thing. Maybe go with give Cyborg the belt at 145 in the UFC. Don't make a division. Maybe have like a number one contender fight here and there, and then have who can beat Cyborg sweepstakes because I don't really know what else they can do at this point. It's there's a there's probably a lot more questions after coming after this fight than there are answers. Um, I mean the fact that we're even talking about a women's featherweight division. I mean, you could say about women's bantamweight and Ronda Rousey, but at least they had like Misha Tate, Amanda Nunes, Sarah McMahon, Kat Zingano, Sarah Kaufman, Kedzie was around, Alexis Davis. I mean, you actually had, I'd say 10, maybe even 15 plus fighters in women's bantamweight when Ronda Rousey. They were quality fighters. They're actually pretty good fighters, and some, a lot of them became champions. Tate, Nunez, they actually became like UFC champions. Um, you actually had good fighters and quality fighters at women's bantamweight, and a generally good number of them. Women's featherweight, you just don't have that. Like I said, like have you ever seen like a Charmaine Tweet fight, a Latoya Walker fight, a Peggy Morgan fight, and Amanda Bell fight? They're not high level fights, you know. They're not, you know, they don't have great striking skill, technique, on a technical level. They're not very strong. And also a lot of those fighters that I named are actually pretty old too. They're in like their mid 30s. It's not a young division, There's not a lot of prospects. There's Amber Librock, Marina Shafir, who's like you can't seem to win. Megan Anderson, who's like the bright spot, a bright spot in the division, and a couple other fighters that are in their 20s. I mean, it's very much like men's heavyweight, but even less so, for skill. So it's like, I'm not huge on having the whole division, women's featherweight division in the UFC personally. Um, for reasons being, fight quality and whatnot, and just having, I actually am of the opinion that having the women's featherweight division as it is in the UFC right now may actually hurt the division in the future. They might just get rid of the division, and it's going to look, you know, it may actually make like having the the fighters that they have right now and the skill that they have may actually make the division look really bad. So like, oh, you get rid of division. I don't know if they'll even want to bring it back if it looks bad to begin with. May like pretty much like I'm of the opinion it may actually do more harm than good putting the whole women's featherweight division in the UFC at this point in time. I can't say the same for like women's flyweight because they actually have a good quality and quantity of fighters. But with Cris Cyborg there, that kind of changes the whole landscape of what like the whole argument, because she's there. So it's really weird. I'm very curious to see how they move forward with Cris Cyborg and everything around her moving forward. Next fight, that Hendon Barral defeated Felipe Nover by a unanimous decision. Barral looked good. He mixed in striking and takedowns. I'll say this though. Barral looked good, but he didn't look elite. And that's the biggest problem with Barral right now at 145. It's like he seems like a middle of the pack fighter at 145. I think he can get more wins at men's featherweight. I think this is probably the right division for him to be in. It's because he got beat up by like T.J. Dillashaw twice at 135. It looks like he had a really hard time making that weight cut. And he doesn't look bad here per se. Even against Jeremy Stevens, he didn't look that bad. In the first round, he looked quite great. He actually looked elite there. In that first round, he was just moving, running circles around Jeremy Stevens in the first round. Here, I mean, he looks good. He looks like a guy that can get wins in the UFC on a consistent basis over like mid-level guys. It's going to be against those top-level guys that I kind of question. It'd be interesting to see him fight like a Charles Oliveira, a Dennis Bermudez, guys who do have noticeable weaknesses, even though they are in the top of the division. Um, I just at this point, I'd like to see Burrell against more mid-level guys before he fights any top guys. Felipe Nover, I mean, he's barely hanging on a thread in the UFC. He's all right. Like I think he's just good enough to be there, but that's just about it. They probably use him on a Philippines card. That'd be pretty interesting. But like at best, he can beat like some mid-level guys. But otherwise, and even when he fought like what Yochu Nam, I mean he couldn't. He barely beat him. I mean, he just barely. And the Ocho Nam was like pretty low, on the featherweight spectrum. But it was a win that Burrell needed. So I thought Roy Nelson defeated Antonio Silva by knockout in the second round. So one of the talking points here was Nelson's post-fight behavior, kicking the ref, flicking them off, and whatnot. He obviously has beef with John. I think he's had beef with John McCarthy, and then he is really disappointed in the fact that McCarthy didn't really stop the fight earlier. I think Nelson makes a good case there. I think he's actually right, but his actions towards that were wrong. It's like, yeah, don't kick him, don't flick him off, and do stuff like that. Because now your point doesn't really get across now. It's now just about you. The talking point is the fact that you kicked the ref, the fact that you flicked him off, instead of the bigger point you wanted to make of, hey, this guy is letting other guy, take unnecessary punishment. Um, Nelson, he got the win that he needed. He's still ranked in the top 15. He's a good test for prospects at this point. It was a good test for Derek Lewis, that Derek Lewis barely passed, but he did pass it. So, with that said, I like to see Nelson. There's not much I can say about the fight. Silva did better than I thought he would, but, he succumbed to getting knocked out. He can't take a punch. He just cannot take a punch anymore. And it makes me call into question with Antonio Silva if he should keep fighting. As far as, obviously, I don't know the guy. I'm not his friend, and I'm just some dude. But, as an observer, fan, whatever you want to call me, and doing analysis, I do have to put into question, hey, should this guy keep fighting? Because he gets knocked out quite a bit, and it's not good for his health. With that said, I don't know if the UFC is going to cut him, because I have a feeling that Antonio Silva is just going to go to Bellator right away. And the UFC probably knows that. So, they might cut him and let him do it anyways, because it's not like Antonio Silva was some huge draw or anything like that. But, he's an interesting addition to their heavyweight division. With that said, I think Nelson should get Ruslan Magomedov or Francis Ngannou, because Nelson at this point probably is best just testing prospects and seeing if they're ready for the top 10. Next round, that Francisco Trinaldo defeated Paul Felder by TKO doctor stoppage in the third round. Man, fact of the matter is this with Trinaldo, he's good. he's just a good fighter. I don't know. There's nothing about him that looks elite, but he knows how to win now. I don't know how else to say it. I've been noticing for a while now. It's like, yeah, this guy's style. He's moving around. He pot shots well. He has a really strong left hand. He's running that left hand all day on Felder's face. He's mixing his takedowns. He's big. He's tough. He's solid. He's actually coming up. It's weird because he's one of the older lightweights, but he's on this 7-fight win streak over solid but not spectacular competition. Chad LaPriest, Norman Park, Ross Pearson, Felder, Yancy Medeiros. But with a win streak like that and whatnot, he just needs a step up in competition. The fight was fun. I thought Felder actually managed to get some good hits on there. Felder needs to lead a little more. His back was against a cage a good amount of times. So he makes some small mistakes that a guy that's experienced as Trinaldo can capitalize on. And That cut that Felder got that caused the stoppage was pretty gruesome. I gotta say. Um, Felder, he's good, but like it still seems like he's like finding himself as a fighter or something. Like I can't really explain it, but it's just like I he just hasn't put it all together yet. I don't know if this is his ceiling or not. Um, but yeah, fun fight. I think Trinaldo should probably get the win of Dariush versus Rashid Magomedov. That'd be a good fight. Um, if you want to go win loss, you can actually go Trinaldo Dustin Poirier. That'd be pretty cool. Who else? Mm, there's others I can think of. Chiesa's already beaten Trinaldo. I expect Chiesa to actually be able to beat him again. Maybe, because Ronaldo's striking's really improved. Uh, but with Paul Felder, I mean, just more lower to major guys at the division. If he can clean some stuff up, fix a couple of the holes in his game, he really could be something. He's got a really good chin. He hits hard. Striking's not bad. His grappling is improving. He is a bit older though. He's like 32, but he's not super experienced. So it's really tough to say where his ceiling's at. Next round after that, Eric Spicey defeated Thiago Martes Santos by rear naked choke in the first round. This was a massive upset that I did not expect to happen. And I don't think anyone expected to happen. I thought that, like, the reasoning here was that I thought that Santos fixed, like, had a good enough takedown defense not to get taken down by Spicely. And then he was beating them up on the feet. So the problem is, when Santos was on the ground, I mean, he didn't really look good there. He got his back taken quite easily. He got choked and whatnot. He's just not good off his back. And it really goes to show that Santos, he was getting wins. Middleweight's so weird because he's a guy that is a better striker than a good majority of the division. Until he fought like Gegard Mousasi, of course. So he had one specialized skill set that's better than the mid tier of the division, and then this mid level didn't have the grappling to really expose, I guess, what Eric Spicey exposed, a huge weakness on the ground. Eric Spicely, for all his flaws, because he has a very singular game. He strikes to get usually a single leg takedown, and then he tries to take the back. I mean, that's his game. That's what he did here, and it was enough to beat Santos. Um, I guess I guess the fight shows that like Spicy did have good enough wrestling to take Santos down on a consistent level. Um, and yeah, he got that upset win. He kept his job, and Santos is now on a two-fight losing streak. Santos, though, he's shown himself to be a fun action fighter. Like I said, he's a step above a lot of his competition as far as striking goes until he reaches like the top 10, of course. And I think that's really what kept him ahead of the pack. Because he could easily have been stuck in mid-tier purgatory. But and I don't think Eric Spicey's like I said, he has such a singular game. What he did here is what he tries to do against every opponent. It managed to work here, didn't work against a guy like Sam Alvey. So it's really tough to say if I'm not trying to insult Spicely, but it's just like um, I don't really know if even though he got this win, I don't really know if Eric Spicey is anything above a mid-tier purgatory guy. Like I talk about the mid-tier purgatory all the time. And Thiago Marta Santos is shown to be above that mid-tier purgatory just because he's a better striker than everyone. But like, I can't really say if Eric Spicely is uh, in that same space either. I can't really say he's a better wrestler or grappler than everyone. He's certainly probably not a better striker. But this was a good upset win. I just, like I said, though, I don't know if Spicely is above that mid tier purgatory, but he should fight more guys there. Thiago Morata Santos, yeah, a lot of his momentum, it's pretty much gone. I think he'll probably just top out as a fun action fighter. I expect him to win more than lose at middleweight, though. But I guess it goes to show that guys like Spicely, with some good grappling ability, good wrestling ability, can get that upset on a guy like Santos. Maybe it's style. Maybe Santos's wins also could be stylistically dependent as well. So with that, Godofredo Pepe defeated Mike De La Torre by rear naked choke in the first round. Yeah, you know what? This is a Pepe. This is a Pepe fight, and this is a Pepe win. You always got to watch out for Sky in the first round. I mean that's how it goes. I think I said as much in the predictions. This guy is a wild man. He went for the flying knee that I thought he would. He went for the spinning heel kick that actually hit Mike De La Torre. He brawled like crazy. De La Torre brawled back. Pepe got the better of it, but De La Torre actually got some licks in. Um, Pepe managed to get the sink in the rear naked choke. Fun, and very much a Godofredo Pepe fight. And how this guy more or less wins in the UFC. I mean, it's usually a first round win. It's usually some wild first round craziness. Flying triangle on Andre Fili. Flying knee on Noah Lahat. Um, that's Godofredo Pepe. This is crazy, wild fun in the first round, and that's where Pepe is the most dangerous. With that said, I think De La Torre is on a losing streak. I don't know if the UFC's gonna keep him at this point. I'm not too sure because he beat someone in the interim. Uh, yeah, I'm not too sure about his record right now, but like, I don't think he's the most winning fighter in the UFC. Pepe, lives to fight another day. He came off a loss to Elkins, beat De La Torre. Pepe is a guy to be feared in the first round against a lot of fighters, especially the mid level fighters. They had to really mind their P's and Q's against Pepe in the first round, but once they can uh, maybe weather that early storm, some fighters have managed to pull ahead against Pepe. Just more lower to mid guys at division for Pepe. Okay, on the prelims, Michel Prazeres defeated Gilbert Burns by unanimous decision. Um, you know what? I'll just admit it. I thought Burns was a pretty hot prospect, and I honestly thought that he was better in all aspects of MMA than Prazeres, and I was wrong. That's all. Prazeres was the better wrestler. He was able to take Burns down consistently. Prazeres was the better striker, which surprised me in a sense because Prazeres has never really shown that good of striking. But he showed a really good striking game here. He was actually throwing 1-2s. He hit that liver kick on Burns. Prazeres was also pressuring really well, and Burns just couldn't handle it. I don't know if Prazeres is necessarily turning a corner. It kind of looks like one thing about Prazeres here. At least it looks like he was actually trying to finish the fight instead of trying to grind. Um, so you know that would be a good look for Prazeres moving forward. He is still very much that mid-level gatekeeper that prospects will either beat or not beat. I mean, he's not tall, but dude, the guy is Uh, the guy is like big for the weight class nonetheless. He can grind if need be, and he just showed improved striking. He's going to be a tough out for a lot of guys. Gilbert Burns, he's just not the prospect that many thought that he was. And moving forward, uh, I think Burns can get wins, especially with his grappling. He still muscles a lot of takedowns. He's big for the weight class. I mean, his striking's not bad. He actually does have, seems to have heavy hands. He actually dropped Prazeres in the first, but he's not consistent enough with his striking. Like, if he ever puts it all together, then like maybe he can be something. But at this point, like it's tough to see his ceiling. Prazeres is more, both of them just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. So I thought Honey Yaya defeated Michinori Tanaka by unanimous decision. What can I say? The ultimate neutralizer, Honey Yaya defeated a prospect, and you know, uh, Honey Yaya's fights aren't pretty. They can be weird, but like there's a lot of scrambling in this fight, and Yaya would end up getting the better of the scrambles. He'd take the back, he'd get top position a lot of times, and just get the better of these scrambles. That guy's body locks are insanely good. Once like Yaya gets a body lock, you gotta watch out. Especially on the ground. He uses the body lock really well. Tanaka, he fought good. He fought valiantly. He's a good scrambler in his own right. Managed to get out of bad positions, but like Yaya was just like one step ahead a lot of times. And like I said with Yaya, he's just the ultimate neutralizer. He is just so good at neutralizing guys' offense. That's just what makes him so hard to fight. Um, with that said, I mean, I don't have a lot of faith that Yaya's gonna like really move up in the division, but he's a prospect killer, that's for sure at this point. Because last this Tanaka and the fighter, his previous opponent were both prospects, and Yaya managed to beat them both. You know, I think Tanaka's still a good prospect. He makes a lot of explosive movements, good athlete. He's good on the ground. He's a good scrambler. He was able to even get top position a couple times in Yaya and land some ground and pound. Needs a little work on his striking. He's still a good prospect. I think he can still manage to rise up the ranks. A guy like Yaya, that is so tough. I mean, and yeah, both these guys are more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for both. So right after that, Hussein Formiga defeated Dustin Ortiz by unanimous decision. Um, this guy's such a killer when he gets a guy's back, man. It's insane how this guy can like switch body triangles, and whatnot. It's really good, Dustin Ortiz, he's good. He's a good wrestler. Striking's not bad, but you know these high-level BJJ guys, Wilson Hayes and Formiga, just managed to out-grapple him. They just managed to just outdo him. Um, and Formiga, you don't want to grapple with this guy. You just don't. This guy is like such a good back taker. He's a good scrambler. He's a good back taker. Um, real high level guy. Striking's not that bad either. He's back in that proverbial mix. He's still a guy that has not fought Demetrius Johnson, that does have a skill set that could potentially be trouble for Johnson. Probably not though, but at the very least, it's like, if Formiga can somehow take Johnson's back, it would get interesting. He has that going for him. Johnson would probably just beat him up, but that's neither here nor there actually, because Formiga's not next in line for the title. But nonetheless, Formiga should probably get the winner of Horiguchi versus Bagi Tunov. That'd be a good number one contender fight actually. And Dustin Ortiz is somewhere like mid to lower tier guys of the division. I don't really know what this guy needs to fix, you know? I think, you know what his biggest problem is? He clinches when he doesn't need to. I think that's one of his biggest problems. And he does it a lot. He overextends. I think Dominic Cruz was talking about it. He overextends a lot of times. And it forces him into clinching positions against guys like Formiga or Hayes, who are just better there, you know? So I thought Eric Silva defeated Luan Chagas by rear naked choke in the third round. This was actually pretty back and forth. The reason why I picked Luan Chagas is because he dropped Eric Silva like twice. You know, Eric Silva's getting better. He's getting more patient. He's not just wildly brawling, but defensively he needs work. His chin's not very good. That third round, the way that rear naked choke came about was really awkward. Both of them were tired, especially Chagas. Um, Despite the win here, I mean, it's a fight of the night, so both these guys will probably stay in the UFC. But like, despite this win here, I had to say, I don't think I'm gonna trust Eric Silva to win fights in the UFC. I just don't, you know, unless you get some really specific opponent who's like not heavy-handed, who doesn't have good wrestling or something like that. But otherwise, anyone that has some level of power in their strikes, I I don't think I can confidently pick Eric Silva to beat. Honest truth, like Chagas dropped the Silva like what twice in this fight, once in the first round. Chagas needs a lot of work though. I mean, he went for an ill-advised armbar on Eric Silva, and it was sloppy too the way he got into it. Um, he needs to work on his cardio. But you know, this saves Eric Silva, keeps his job in the UFC really. Just more lower to mid guys in the division for both. Again, on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, Alan Patrick defeated Steve Ray by unanimous decision. Ray just needs to work on his takedown defense. You know, there were some crazy scrambles here. Patrick, I noticed, has been you know what? I gotta think of Alan Patrick as a grappler now. I really do. Uh, because like he strikes and he's kind of awkward, but like in his last, you know, heck, ever since he went to UFC, he's been like trying to like grapple his opponent. So I gotta look at Alan Patrick as like a top control grappler at this point, and if that's how he wants to fight, I can see him get wins over like mid-level guys because the guy's super athletic. He's a lot of he's using a lot of strength to get takedowns and whatnot, but his athleticism is really pulling him through. The only problem is with Patrick, like he got mounted because he went for a body lock takedown, and then Ray just managed to get on top and to mount. So you know Patrick can get in bad positions in the times of transition because he's not always relying on good technique. He's trying to like muscle his way to the takedowns and whatnot. But yeah, you know Patrick, he's good enough to grapple a lot of like the lower guys or guys that don't have great takedown defense, and you know he does enough to like win, but he still hasn't done anything to truly impress yet. He's just like another face in the crowd. Stevie Ray, I mean, the guy hits hard. He actually has some pretty good stand up. He's game, but this really showed the problem in his grappling. Um, and if you get Stevie Ray some more striking based fighters, you can probably beat them. But guys that like really relentlessly want to take him down, he's probably gonna lose to at this point. Just both guys get more lower to mid guys of the division. So I thought Vicente Luque defeated Hector Urbina by knockout in the first round. You know, Vicente Luque has been quietly amassing. Um, he has like a three and one record. He's been looking better every time out. I like his game. You know, he hits hard. His wrestling's improving, and his grappling's really strong, especially his front strokes. Still young too. Uh, you know, I don't know if he's where his ceiling is, but at the very least, he's showing improvement every time out, and He's actually the other thing that helps him too. He's getting finishes. He's a guy that is a potent finisher, and that's always a good look for prospects as well. Hector Urbina is who he is. I don't know if he stays. I would imagine he gets cut. He's like kind of average everywhere. I mean, there's nothing particularly standoutish about him. But with Vicente Luque, just give him some more mid-level guys of the division. And finally, Gregor Gillespie defeated Glyco Franca by unanimous decision. Uh, you know, Gillespie really showed me a lot. What I saw in the regional scene, I saw here, but like a bit more amplified, I guess. Because, Gillespie's striking did improve. I didn't like how much he got hit clean, though. I did say he does shoot far from the outside, and that's the truth. He still does that, but like he's so relentless, and his work rate is so good when he wrestles um, that it's gonna cause problems for a lot of fighters. Glyco Franca actually did pretty well. He actually managed to get off the bottom a good amount of times and managed to hurt Gillespie, but Gillespie just managed to outwork him, strikes with him pretty well. I'm kind of wondering if Gillespie's going to stay in this weight division because Glyco Franco looked like one weight division bigger than him. Um, but, Gillespie showed why he is a top prospect and someone to look out for. I think moving forward, I'm probably going to pick Gregor Gillespie if he fights like lower and even a good amount of mid-level guys. I'll probably pick Gregor Gillespie to win those fights moving forward because he really showed me something here, because I actually didn't expect him to win this fight, and this fight actually kind of showed why. It's like he got hit clean, still shoots from the outside. Um, Guys can still get off from the bottom against him a good amount of times. But he's relentless and he's improving. So yeah, just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for both. I know Franco's coming off a two-fight losing streak, but I think he's still a quality talent. I really hope that the UFC keeps him. I think he's good. I think he's definitely good enough to be there. He fought James Vick before this, and honestly, if he didn't get eye poked, he may have actually won that fight. That eye poke changed the tide of the fight, so yeah, so that's pretty much it for my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 95. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please check out my website at www.chrismoldon.com. You can buy some of my works, starting with my first novel, The Mustard Prince and the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99. And you can buy some of my short stories and short story collections for $1.99, starting with The Land of the Wooden Statues, the Horror Collection, and the Fantasy Fable Collection. Links to buy these will be provided in the description, along with a link to my Twitter page, a link to my author's page on Facebook, and my author's YouTube page. So that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.